Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Terran strategy. In this replay, our Terran player here is Satini, and our Protoss opponent is Yeba, or Yeba sounds right. Alright, so let's go into Satini vision. We're going to be looking at some early aggression with Marauders, basically. There's going to be a Marine or two mixed in there as well, but Marauders are very, very effective against Protoss early game. With that Concussive Shell upgrade, it allows them to chase down any Stalkers that try to run away, and it allows them to fully kite any Zealots who try to push in against them. So Marauders, early game, very strong. If you can go with some sort of a 2 Barracks build and then transition to a factory in Starport to get medevacs thereafter, you're going to be in a strong position. Now, there's a few timing things to think about here. Early on, like I had just stated, Marauders very, very strong. Now, what's going to happen is once Immortals get on the board, if he goes for something like a 2 or 3 gate robo, and once he starts to pump out Immortals, that power is going to kind of switch into his favor until you get your medevacs out. Once you get your medevacs out, that increases your mobility and just the general effectiveness of your units, because you can Stim Pack and still have them healed up a little bit. So it helps out quite a bit. So there is that shift, and realize, you're going to be able to push out early game with Marauders and Marines. But once he starts to use his sentries to force field you out, you're going to have to pull back, and then you worry there's going to be that time frame again as soon as those Immortals come out where you're going to be weak. So at that point, you're going to have that transition prepared to get the medevacs. And once you get that with Stim Pack, Concussive Shell, and even Combat Shield as well, the power there starts to shift back in your favor. The power of the Marine and Marauder mix starts to shift back in your favor. I got a little distracted there. My stupid cats are playing with a bag, so I lost my train of thought. That's what that little stutter came from. But anyways, let's start off looking at the build order over here. We started off with a 10 supply depot, followed that up with a 12 barracks and 13 refinery and 16 orbital command. Those first 4 buildings are pretty much the standard timings that you're going to see in any Terran build. If you're just kind of making up a build, or you're working on something new, trying something funny, you should at the least keep those standard. The 10 depot, 12 barracks, 13 refinery, 16 orbital command. Basically, the goal is to get that orbital command up as quickly as possible so you can start muling really early on and take advantage of those extra minerals. So inside of our opponent's base, seeing very standard stuff. We're seeing that gateway, that cybernetics core, and that first assimilator up, second assimilator coming in. That's very standard timing for a Protoss player. So we don't have to worry about a 2-gate push. We don't have to worry about early Zealots. So we're going to continue, and basically, like I said, early game, Marauders are very strong. So we do have this one Marine here that we started out with, just a super early defense and kind of scouting, denying any scouting as well. But then after this, we're going to be coming out with Marauders. You see this Concussive Shell coming down, and these first Marauders out, second Marauders going to be coming out. Once we have a small handful of units, a few Marauders in that Marine, then we're going to push out and try to take advantage. And basically what we're really waiting for is this Concussive Shell. So the second Barracks, as we can see here, that came down at 20 supply. Also started researching that Concussive Shell. We got that tech lab here on this first Barracks at 17 supply after we created that initial Marine. Dropped down the tech lab, then got Concussive Shell, and second Barracks coming down. Also going to be getting this additional supply depot as well to not become blocked. So, you can see there, you didn't see it, but you saw the dead Stalker. And if you go back and check out the replay, you'll see that engagement. But Marauders are just so very strong against Stalkers, especially early game. And with those Concussive Shells, again, it forces them to have to engage because they can't run away. So we're going to be pushing out with these 3 Marauders. There's 2 up here, 1 coming en route as well, and this Marine. And this is the point where we're really, really strong early game. If we can manage to push in, we're going to be able to do a lot of damage. Now, what we can expect is force fields to be dropped. So if you can try to do some damage before that point, you're going to be in a strong position. Also, try to be careful to not get all of your units cut in half. You want to send 1 in front and then the other behind, so if he does force field, you're only going to really lose 1 of them. That's kind of the best position you're going to put yourself in. And then we're preparing, getting those upgrades. You can see the second Barracks, we're getting that Reactor armored as well to pop up this Marine. Now there's that point there, that Marine went up. I'm going to back that up because I want to I'm dumb for moving the camera back. I just wanted you guys to see that. So you can see this one Marine moving in the front. There's that force field. So all we're really losing is the Marine. Now, you're going to try to target fire that sentry. If you can get him down, then you're in a really good spot. If not, don't worry. It's kind of to be expected. I'm going to continue to reinforce, though. Try to push up. Try to see what we can do for damage here. taking down that sentry. There you go. So that's the key. Now we should be able to kite the Zealot pretty much non-stop. You want to pull this guy back. Again, playing with health bars allows you to do that. It allows you to see which one is low. And then try to push back in. Now we can expect another sentry to have come in, but you might as well give it a shot. Back at the base, coming down with this factory. We saw that factory drop down at 37 supply. And let's go back up here just to see precisely what we have going on. Anything fancy going on? Anything funny going on? No. So we're just basically going to be looking to push in. Again, we can expect that other sentry to have come in by now. And there's that force field. So we're going to push back. Now here's that moment in time that I was talking about. We saw that Immortal. Now the power is starting to switch into his favor, and we're really going to be in a tight bind. We want to basically get up the Starport as quickly as possible. As soon as this factory is done building, again, we started at 37 supply. As soon as it's done building, we're putting that reactor down on it and building that Starport and that reactor coming up at 45 supply. Going to want to retreat with our units as soon as we do see him pushing out, because again, he is going to be in a stronger position than us at this moment. And we're getting these upgrades. You can see already have that Concussive Shell Stim Pack going down, and we're going to be getting that Combat Shield as well right after the Stim Pack. So even with Stim Pack, even though we may feel strong, those two Immortals pretty much negates all of that, because if he target fires those Marauders, all we're going to be left with is those Marines, and we're going to be very weak against his army. So we want to pull back. Again, if we can just buy some time and to try to get these up, you want to basically do the switch as quickly as possible, but I am assuming that Satini was a little distracted by trying to keep his forces away from our Protoss opponent there. So there's that switch going down. Going to be coming up with medevacs right away. You can see how perfectly that lines up itself as well. I have just enough to come out with those two medevacs, and there's that combat shield coming. So at this point, you know, we're just going to keep pumping out units, keep reinforcing and bolstering up our army. Once we get that medevac out, then again that power is going to switch from his hand to ours, and that's kind of the transition that I'm talking about, and that's the timing you want to be aware of. So you go for that initial push, try to do damage. If you can't get in, if he does a good job of force fielding you out, that's fine. Once you see you can keep being aggressive, but once you see those Immortals out, it's going to be a good idea to pull back until you start to get these medevacs. So here are these medevacs out. Now we're going to be in a much stronger spot. We have that Stim Pack now. We still have that Concussive Shell, obviously, and that Combat Shield is just about finished. And this is when our second push is going to come. But taking a look back here at our base, we can see that our opponent pushed out against us. Now, you're obviously, if you were right in front of his base, it may be time for a base trade. But if you're about halfway across, you can safely pull back. It's probably a better idea to pull back. Now, we do have to worry about force fields at the ramp, but the real good thing is, now that we have these medevacs out, even with those force fields, we do have the option. You could just lift up half your forces and drop them right on the other side. We see that his energy is pretty low, although he could have force fielded again there. So what you would want to do, he can drop another force field, so there you go. It's not going to be a bad idea to lift them off. You know, take this medevac, grab a few Marauders, drop it right there, and there you go. You're all set. Since we were able to sneak a few Marines in, no, we don't have to do that. Microing away from the Zealots, that's always something you want to do. Now, he did a bit of damage, but the thing to realize is all he really took out was the attachments. We still have this building up. You want to grab some guys. There you go. Go repair that. Also, see this Ghost Academy down. That's not going to be a good idea, especially if you see a really ground-heavy army from your Protoss opponent. Getting those EMPs is going to be really strong for you. So defending against that attack, now at this point we're going to be putting down those attachments again, but also more importantly we're going to be counterattacking. And this is something that's really important just to think about in general in your games. Your opponent pushes out against you, you fend it off pretty handedly. I mean, you can see we're left with quite a few units here. You should push out at that point, at the very least to test the front of his gate and see what he has. A lot of times your opponent will have thrown most of what they have into that attack. So if you can push out against them, you should be in a really strong spot. Something we're going to take a look at in this next engagement also is proper micro. Stim packing up and then microing away from your opponent. It's very important to try to keep your ranged units away from any of his melee units. So any of those Zealots you want to try to stay away from. Using these guys to get vision to the high ground there, we see the push coming. We're going to Stim Pack up, move the guys away from the Zealots, pull the guys away from the Zealots, pull them away from the Zealots. And if you do that, it's going to make your units much more effective. Basically, if we had kept our guys standing toe-to-toe with the Zealots, we probably would have lost about half of what we had here. And then if he just warped in some more units, he actually could have been in a really good spot. But as you can see, using Stim Pack, microing away, that's kind of what saved our units there. And we were able to push in, and he calls a good game. So yeah, very strong build. We're going to look at those, talk about those timing windows for one quick moment before we look at that build order. So you start the game out, you get those Marauders and that Concussive Shell very early on, you're in a very strong spot, you can push out against your opponent. If he gets force fields down, you do want to try to target fire that sentry. If you kill it, you're going to be able to push into his base. Now, once he starts to get immortals on the board, that's when your force is going to become much weaker. So at that point, you want to pull back. And then all this time, you've been getting your factory, you've been building up to your starport. And once that starport's up, get those medevacs out. When you have those medevacs, that'll be a good time to push out. You're going to be in a strong position once again. Let's go ahead and go over that build order, though, one last time. We saw that beginning 10 supply depot, follow that up with a 12 barracks and 13 refinery. Now, at 16 supply, we're seeing that orbital command. 17 supply, we put a tech lab right on our first barracks. That was after we built our initial marine to deny any scouting and just help with early game pushes. So 17 supply, seeing that tech lab. 20 supplies when we get that concussive shell. 20 supplies also when that second barracks came down. And then at 28 supply, seeing that refinery. Now, 28 supply, when that refinery came down, this barracks was done building, so we were able to drop a reactor on that. And then at 31 supply, started researching our Stim Pack. 37 supply, getting that factory. 45 supply, getting that starport, and also putting that reactor on the factory. That allowed us to switch it up as soon as it came up. Starport finished, we lifted off the factory, put the starport on the reactor, and then started pumping out medevacs. So once again, guys, this has been Force Strategy Gaming. If you guys like our videos and you like what we're doing here, please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. So Cloak going down here, going to be taking out his units. This is something really important that you want to be able to do. Again, having Cloaked Banshees, very, very beneficial. This is a really good idea in this matchup because, again, it's forcing your opponent into these certain situations.